Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you'll join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have three wonderful guests for you today. Cole Nausbaumer Knaflic will be on to celebrate Daphne Draws Data. We'll then be returning to Norwalk, Connecticut and Authorpalooza to speak to C B Oresky and celebrate her book, The Warlock's Curse. And to end the show, we'll be taking a listen back to our wonderful conversation with Hollywood star and children's author Danica McKeller. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Carol Selleck's Musical Me collection of picture books. This collection inspires kids to embark on a musical journey, and you're going to love it. Play For Me, Peter captures the excitement, challenge, and joy of making music. Sing For Me, Sarah encourages children to step into the spotlight and find their own voice with a beautiful original song at the end of the book. And at the end of Play For Me, Peter, you're going to find an original song to help kids learn how to read music and play a musical instrument. Both Play For Me, Peter and Sing For Me, Sarah are available at Amazon and at Carol's website, carolselleckbooks.com. Hey, my friends, when should you start to talk to your kids about money? Well, if you ask me, I would say as soon as possible. Helping our kids become financially literate is so very important. And thanks to owningthedash.com, talking to your kids about money and finances is easier than ever. Anthony Deloney is a financial dad advisor and the founder of Owning the Dash, LLC, an organization dedicated to promoting childhood financial literacy and family financial freedom. Deloney has written a series of award-winning children's picture books that each teach basic lessons about money. He has also authored 2 financial self-help books geared towards helping young couples start their financial journey and towards helping older couples prepare for their transition into retirement. Owning the Dash empowers families by providing books, games, and activities that introduce fundamental financial lessons in a fun and engaging way, encouraging kids to think about certain scenarios and how they might respond, and help prepare kids for when they have to make important money decisions later in their life. All 5 of Anthony's books have been named Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Reads and would make a great addition to your family library. To learn more, please visit owningthedash.com. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Our guest is here today to celebrate Daphne Draws Data. Please welcome to the show, Cole Nausbaumer Knaflic. Cole, how are you?
I'm great, Jed. It's nice to be here.
Super to have you on. What an intriguing title, Daphne Draws Data.
Yes. So Daphne is a delightful dragon. I'm a fan of alliteration, as you can probably tell, who has a unique talent. She really enjoys drawing. And one of the things she loves to draw most is data. So she gets some flack from her older brother and decides she's going to leave the dragon cave and search for a place where she's appreciated for being herself. And so she goes on a journey, makes friends along the way, and each time she's helping her new friends solve a problem by drawing data. So basically making really pictorial versions of graphs. It's a way for me to bring the things that we've been teaching adults for over a decade through storytelling with data to the younger crowd. because graphs are a visual language and we could be teaching it a lot earlier. So it's the way to make it fun and then provide some learning along the way.
You know, it's funny. When I was young, I really enjoyed math. And then I became a very lazy student in the first couple of years of high school. And so I kind of fell behind. And then I took a statistics class in college, which blew my mind. The highest grade I got in that class was a 46. However, when I went to drop the class, the teacher begged me not to because I had the highest grade.
Oh my goodness!
Class and I was get an A. So numbers. I love, I have to work with them for the podcast and everything, but boy, I could have a much better relationship with them these days.
Well, and this is what everyone says, that I wish I did it better, or I wish I'd learned this sooner. And for me, watching my own kids grow and just their brains develop, I mean, for me, the idea had been gnawing at me for the better part of a decade of how can we take the things that we teach adults about communicating effectively with numbers in a business setting and make that accessible and engaging and fun for kids? Because you figure kids learn the faculty of language at such a young age, and graphs really are just a language. They're the visual language of numbers, and we can use them to help kids solve problems, help them understand how they might frame their questions and what data they could then gather in order to do that, and really make math this powerful, productive, tangible thing versus the abstract way in which it's typically taught.
Why do you think, and we've talked about this in regards to history and some of the STEM subjects, it seems at some point somebody went out of their way to make learning these subjects
boring,
hard,
rote, repetition. I don't know why that is, but I would like to shake it up. And I think one of the ways to shake it up on the math side is to go the other direction. Take the abstraction away, make it super practical for kids. The great thing about kids is they are natural data analysts. They have so many questions, and that is the foundation for being able to problem solve and think logically. So if we can help them foster that, help them learn how to frame questions so that they can collect data and answer them themselves, and teach them how to do it for things that they can use to better learn about themselves and about the world. It drives me nuts, the kinds of graphs that I see my kids come home with. I have a 11-year-old, 10-year-old, and 8-year-old. They graph the weather, right? Daily weather in January, right? As you mentioned, we live in Milwaukee. The weather in January is miserable. They know that. They lived through it. They don't need a graph to tell it to them. But what if instead we had them look at their iPads and see how much screen time they have a day, or note down when they go to bed and how they feel in the morning. Like, these are things that they could draw a simple graph of and actually learn something new and maybe make observations about how they're approaching their priorities and their lives that they could take control over and do something with. I think it could be a really powerful thing.
What fascinating idea this, and we have the tools,
Yes.
you can look at you. I don't know how to do it myself, but my niece tells me all the time how much time she spends on her screen. And
and take the screen out of it, though. So, Daphne the dragon, she is not walking around with a calculator or a computer. She's walking around with a notebook and crayons. And that's because you can do these things. You can draw data, make pictures out of numbers it can be a messy, fun, artistic way. It doesn't need to be, again, countering to the way math is usually taught, this rote, perfect rulers and straight lines sort of thing. Because if there are two things that are innate in children that I think as we grow up, we often lose over time, It's that uncensored questioning, right, of trying to figure out the puzzle pieces of the world and asking anybody around us who might know more than we do. And it's drawing. You put a crayon and a piece of paper in front of any child and they're going to start drawing, and they're not going to censor themselves or talk about how, oh, I'm not really good at drawing. They're just going to put it down on paper. And so if we can help them marry those things and keep those great aspects of childhood alive, they will turn into or grow into the best analytical thinkers and problem solvers. And we need those skills.
Yeah. We talk here, obviously, on Reading with Your Kids about the importance of reading with your kids.
Yeah.
I created the show because I knew how I know that my relationship with my now adult kids was built on a foundation of reading together, but also of counting together and, kind of exploring these things. I have a very fond memory of my son. We lived on the second floor when my son was born, and we would count down the stairs every day when we went down the stairs, like the count on Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, and my son was counting, before he was walking.
Yes.
And so I think that this idea of, if we have to take this idea of reading with our kids and add it to every moment of our lives, counting with your kids, drawing data with your kids, I think it's so important.
And so Daphne Draws Data, the book it's a story, right? It's a fun story. It's not a teaching book per se. It can be read at bedtime, and the graphs are very pictorial, where a child's not even going to realize probably that they're looking at a graph, but can see how the way Daphne's drawn something helps provide the solution for the given challenge or the given obstacle. For those who want more, it's then accompanied by a graph glossary at the end that then gets into more of the teaching piece of bar charts and line graphs and pie charts and scatter plots, and goes through examples and talks about what you can use them to show, what types of questions you can answer. There also are some activities that are framed out of, here's something you could do using a bar chart. And we are actively building out our supporting website at daphnedrawsdata.com, where there are activities for kids, support for parents, resources for teachers. On the parental side, I'm a data person, but I know that is maybe not the norm. And there's a whole spectrum of people ranging from loving numbers to maybe even loathing them on the other end of that. And so we've made a parent guide that goes through each of the graphs used in the book and really breaks down the nomenclature, how to explain it, how to understand what the different pieces are. So even the parent who says, "Ooh, I'm not good at math, I don't like numbers," there are resources so that you understand how to talk through it and have some support there, as well as discussion questions that you can use to then spark great conversations with little learners.
Yeah. Where does this passion for graphs and data and math and numbers come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my background scholastically is mathematics and business, and I always really enjoyed the place where those two disciplines converge, where you can take numbers and, maybe do fancy things behind the scenes, but ultimately bring that to somebody in the form of a sentence or a really easy to understand picture. I enjoyed that space. I worked there in banking. I worked at Google and always used this skill set. And then when I was at Google, started teaching others how to communicate effectively using numbers and how to communicate effectively in general. And so it's been more than a decade ago that I left Google and started my company, Storytelling with Data, where we help people create graphs that make sense and go beyond just the data visualization. Really think about, how do you take those numbers or the data and make them meaningful and weave them into a story. It's going to get your audience's attention and help them understand something new and drive towards action. So I have several best-selling adult business books and a company built around this idea that we can all learn how to do this better. Everyone encounters data in their daily work these days, and nobody really is trained what to do with it or how to look at it or how to share it with others. And it turns out they're really easy, practical things that you can do to make it work better for yourself and for everybody else. So we teach workshops, podcast, blog, an online community, all of those things to support adult learners in this space. And I'm really excited to bring the concepts to kids as well.
Yeah. I love that you're encouraging kids to question. I think it's a really empowering thing for kids. But I don't know if everybody agrees. I think sometimes kids asking questions can be very threatening to some folks.
Yes, I've encountered this directly with my oldest, he's going into 6th grade in middle school, and he questions things. And it has, it's gotten him into some sticky situations where it really is just a genuine question. I was having a conversation with someone the other day where they told me a story about a child who sounded similar to my son, very curious, asked a ton of questions, and encountered a teacher who told her, "You only get 2 questions. After that, no more questions in my class." And for me, that was so sad and such a missed opportunity, because I can understand both sides of it. I can understand why the teacher, probably in frustration, it's 1 kid out of 30 maybe, and you can't monopolize the time, but just some slight reframing could have turned that into magic. Because if that teacher had said, instead of, you only get 2 questions, don't ask me anymore after that, what if they had said, write down all your questions, and then I want you to pick the 2 that you find most fascinating, and let's talk about those. That would have actually helped the student hone and refine how they're questioning things and celebrated that instead of shunting it.
Yeah. Yeah. My son was also a questioner and is a questioner, and I'm quite proud of it. I think it's so important. And I remember having a conversation with another parent who was really concerned. Her daughter was going off to college, and the woman said to me, "Well, that's when they start questioning their faith." And I said, "Well, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Because if your faith can't stand up to a few questions, probably shouldn't be, investing in it."
Yeah.
Yeah. I've spoken to engineers just because I like speaking to people who are a lot smarter than me. They always tell me that they're not looking to find the solution right away. What they're looking for is the right question to ask that will lead them to the solution.
Yes, because the solution to the wrong question is probably more dangerous than no solution at all, because that so easy can be then misinterpreted or used inappropriately. So this ability to ask questions is foundational. It's foundational to so many different jobs, right? If we're thinking ahead that much, but it's foundational, I think, just to developing one's brain in a way where you can take something that might be ambiguous or scary and actually break it into logical pieces and form questions about those and prioritize them and then decide. So it's all these life lessons that can get built in and reinforced in a way that if we start doing this with kids will become habitual. So by the time they get to college or adulthood, they've honed this ability to think analytically and logically and creatively and make all of those things work in a really coordinated and powerful manner. And so I know we can teach these things sooner because I've seen it in my own children. And granted, they're a small sample size of 3, but the reception that we're getting from teachers, from parents to Daphne Draws Data tells me that there is an appetite out there for this that we can certainly help with.
Yeah. How, after reading Daphne Draws Data, we always ask what kind of conversations we can have. I'm curious, how can a family continue the learning after they read Daphne Draws Data and are a little bit excited about this idea? How can they can take everyday things that they're doing in the house and apply what they're learning?
Absolutely. I did a fun one the other day, and my kids for me are inspiration. And, I mentioned they're always asking questions. So my 8-year-old, we were sitting in the kitchen the other day. We were putting away dishes out of the dishwasher, and she noticed that we have, measuring cups that are magnetic so that they stick together. And she noticed that there was something stuck to, it was like a piece of silverware or something stuck to one of the magnets. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. Does all metal stick to magnets? I was like, well, no, actually it doesn't. And so she spent a good half an hour going around the kitchen and testing everything that looked like metal and even things that didn't, to see what stuck and what didn't. And then separated the things that stuck and the things that didn't. It was like, well, I think we probably should write this down and put it into a graph, right? A la Daphne. And so at the end, she had a pie chart that showed her, all of the different things and what was magnetic and what was not. And we used this then to do some research on, what drives magnetism and magnets. And so this really simple question turned into, a project that entertained us for the better half of, the next hour. And we learned something along the way. And there's so many opportunities like that in every day. And you're not going to do this with everyone, right? But if you are thoughtful about it, and I think that's what I hope Daphne does, is inspires this curiosity, but also inspires people to pause when one of these great questions comes up, or when an opportunity comes up and there's a fun question, to then pause and say, well, no, let's not just answer that in passing or send you to Google to go find the answer. Let's figure it out. And what do we have around us that we could use to collect and analyze? And how would we draw that in a graph? So say first, just look for questions that your kids have that you could take a minute or longer to actually explore with them, because not only is that going to teach them how to do this for themselves, but those are the sort of memories that we as parents are going to be able to look back on and say, I'm so glad I took the time to do that. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's not sure how, we have a number of different prompts and activities on the website that you should feel free to use, worksheets on how to draw Daphne or how to draw a bar chart. So if you need inspiration, there is a lot there. But I think just being mindful throughout one's day, these circumstances will naturally arise as well. And then it's your job to capitalize on them.
I love that, because I think there are a lot of people out there that it's like, oh, I'm not really good at that, so I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to do it. Let somebody else teach my kid about that. And I think it's something I did a lot. It is really fun to learn with your kids.
Yeah.
If you encounter something, I don't know how to do this, well, let's figure it out together.
Yes.
Yeah. My niece is studying biomedical engineering.
Amazing.
And she is loving it. And so it's filled with math, and she really enjoys math. But she's sitting there, and she is the only woman in all of her classes. I hear different reasons for it. Everything from girls can't do math to
fully false, by the way. If there's any question.
So tell us, will being with our kids and participating in these different activities with our daughters, do you think that's going to help bring more women into the science and STEM fields?
I sure hope so. And I don't know where it comes from, but I've seen it in my own daughter already. I mentioned she's 8. This idea that math is hard, I don't like it. It's like, no, you should not like something because it's hard. Like, enjoy that challenge. How do we reframe things? How do we make it practical and interesting to them? And I think if we can take the abstraction out of it, we get really concrete in terms of, what are you interested in? And how do we make this work for you? You are not bad at math. Math is one of those fields where you're going to get a lot wrong, and you're actually going to learn more more from the mistakes than you do from the successes, and really letting kids be creative in how they approach their learning, because not everyone's thinking is linear from A to B to C. And I think math in particular is often taught in a linear fashion that just doesn't honor the differences in how kids' brains work and how we think about things. And so introducing something visual into that puzzle, it can mean the aha moment that a kid may have otherwise not had. So I hear so many people, right? You said this with your statistics class where it was like, oh, I struggled with math, but then there was this one class, right? Often it's geometry, because people suddenly can see, oh, there are shapes, and I can see it and I can draw it and I understand now how some of these numbers fit together. Like, I think back to my own schooling, I didn't have geometry until like the 11th grade. Like, that's a lot of years to lose somebody's interest in math along the way. Whereas the things that I'm talking about, have kids drawing data, making a pictorial, make it about something they care about, let them see it. You can do that with 4-year-olds, and you can build from there so that by the time they get to later, they're asking much more sophisticated questions, and now they know what to do to answer them.
Yeah. I have a memory of being at a little get together, and a gentleman that was there said, and this was probably 20 years ago, why in the world are we killing, making kids do math and making them suffer doing math? We have calculators. We have machines that can do it for us. What would you say to that guy now?
So, I mean, you want your brain to work, right? And for me, math at the foundation is logic. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I love computer programming. A lot of people don't love computer programming, but it's puzzle, it's logic. It's not the program itself. It's how it teaches you to think. And math done well, math taught well, can teach you to think in ways that become useful in almost everything you do. And I think the calculator analogy is interesting, because the analogy that people are drawing more and more currently is AI. And we've talked about the importance of asking questions. That is going to be a space where the ability to ask questions in a good way and refine one's questions and know where and how to question further and deeper, those skills are going to become so important when we entrust computers to do some of the things that we've historically used brains for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This has been a fascinating conversation. I just love talking about things I really don't know a whole lot about. And this is the second conversation. I had Danica McKeller on.
Cool.
Who created her own theorem. I thought that was, I don't know what a theorem is, but
she's impressive.
That was so cool. So we should remind everybody where they can go to find out more about Daphne Draws Data.
Absolutely. So check out Daphne Draws Data, a storytelling with data adventure. You can buy it wherever books are sold. You'll also find a ton of supporting resources, upcoming events, doing book readings around the country, and we have some virtual things as well. As I mentioned, activities for kids, support for parents and teachers, and stay tuned for Daphne's YouTube channel, because that is coming. You can find all of that at daphnedrawsdata.com.
And if folks want to learn a little bit more about the services you offer to adults?
Yes, absolutely. All of that is found at storytellingwithdata.com.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Daphne Draws Data. Our guest has been Cole Nausbaumer Knaflic. Cole, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. This was fun.
On September 18th, we have a brand new show coming to the Reading with Your Kids family. It's called Guardians of the Game. Here is a quick preview.
220 years ago, there was a great war. Family fought family. Neighbor fought neighbor. Good fought evil. And the ending of that war was marked with the banishment of a being known only as the Destroyer. Society began to rebuild and was blessed with a long-lasting peace known as the Age of Tranquility. 70 years ago, that peace was challenged as a being known as the Nameless God threatened to erase the world and replace it with one of her own. Heroes rose and brought her and her generals down. This event inspired thousands all over the continent to train themselves as the next generation of adventurers, and the Age of Heroics began. 30 years ago, the new generation of heroes were put to the test by a multiplanar event that once again threatened reality as it was known. Beings called Weavers were created by strange magic, and those Weavers took it upon themselves to face the coming challenges. When this threat was eliminated, few remained who remembered the details of it, and the Weavers' power vanished from the world. Evils across the globe took the opportunity to rise in the absence of power, and the age of oppression began. This age was short-lived, as one group of heroes had risen to the top of the food chain, the Trifecta. Consisting of a wizard prodigy known as Joffrey the Unstoppable, a devilishly powerful sorceress by the name of Makara the Indomitable, and a master of the physical and martial arts known as Arthur the Unbreakable, the Trifecta quickly became the greatest heroes the world had ever known. Whenever a great evil rose, they were there to stop it, not in a matter of weeks or months, but in a matter of days, or often hours. Within a year, the age of oppression was over. With the Trifecta active, heroics and villainy died out. What villain would dare stand against the sheer effective force of the Trifecta? From bandit warlords all the way to ancient dragons, no evil was safe from their wrath. And what purpose was there to train heroes when an undying adventuring party kept the world safe from every threat? 1 year ago, the Trifecta vanished without a trace, and suddenly, the world realized what had happened. A vacancy of power was opened for both good and evil, and a mad scramble began. Villains who had been lying secretly in wait rose to accomplish their goals, and heroes who were not prepared struggled to battle against them. The past age was given the name the Age of Diminishment, and the world only then began to restore itself to natural order in the absence of its apex predators, the Trifecta. This is where our story begins. In the chaos of a world caught between good and evil, but neither side powerful enough to stake a solid claim. Chaos rules the streets, adventurers are at a premium, and monsters run rampant. More than ever, the world needs heroes to fight back against the swelling tide of darkness. Lines between good and evil are skewed, might begins to make right, and ideals and beliefs are challenged for the first time in decades. Welcome to the Age of Dissonance.
Be sure to join us September 18th, Guardians of the Game, wherever you find your favorite shows. We are here at Authorpalooza in Norwalk, Connecticut. What a great event. My guest right now is C B Oresky. CB, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Having a good time, meeting people and talking to people.
Isn't this a great event?
Yes, it is. There's a lot of authors here, and they have all different kinds of books, and everyone's friendly, so it is a great event.
You are the author of a children's book. Tell us about it, please.
Well, it's a young adult fantasy. It's called The Warlock's Curse, and I worked on it for like 12 to 15 years, and it's kind of like a Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why do you think young adults are kind of drawn to the werewolf, warlock, all that kind of writing?
Well, mine's not as scary as werewolves and things like that, but I think children like a sense of adventure and something different and creative, and like my book has a lot of fun characters, and fantasy's usually very fun, so I have unicorns, dragons, a warlock, I have an enlightened master who performs magic, I mean tons of things. It's fun.
Neat.
Yeah.
What inspired this book?
Oh, I had a dream one night, and I dreamed I was sailing on a white ship with a dear friend, and it was surrounded by whales, and they were singing. It was like in another world. So in my book, the young girls, they're twins, and they go off on a sailing adventure they go to another world, and they meet their great-great-grandfather there, and he's a sea captain, and he takes them on a whale voyage. So that's how that all happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things that we encourage families to do, obviously, the Reading with Your Kids podcast, we're encouraging families to read together. A lot of families, they stop when the kids become independent readers. They kind of stop reading with them. We really know that there's a lot of value in continuing to read and co-read with your kids and having conversations, even when they're teenagers and young adults. What kind of conversations do you think families could have while they're reading and co-reading your book?
Well, I really love the environment. I love trees. I love plants. I love flowers. I love this planet. And I have an eco-friendly character. He's called the Bliss. And he teaches the girls, he helps the girls along the way when they're in trouble. They meet him, and he teaches them all about love for plants and trees and not to hurt other things that are living. And I think that's a great conversation for kids to have, especially with what's going on in the world, a great discussion. So I try to, have something very beneficial in my book besides like a magical adventure. So
we talk a lot with the authors for books for younger kids about their book being a great launching place to get families out into nature together.
Right.
And again, when our kids get older and they're involved in all sorts of activities and they're working and studying, getting ready for college, those kind of outdoor nature activities kind of fall by the wayside. I think this could be a great way to remind parents and their kids that even when you're adults, taking a hike together, going out, planting a garden together can be a really fun bonding experience.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of my book is adventures where the girls are traveling through beautiful places. They're going on a sea journey to meet whales, to open the doorway to another world for them to go to, or they're traveling through the woods, or they're, meeting this Bliss character. So, yeah, it's all about, being in nature and enjoying, too. Yes, for sure.
You shared with us this book. You worked on it for 12 to 15 years, I think. What does it feel like now that it's actually been birthed and it's out in the world?
It was a labor of love, and I wanted to make it perfect. I wanted it to get published, and it was through a, real publisher. And I take a lot of pride in it. I want to get it out to people who are creative and, children who love to read about, different worlds and adventures. So I'm proud of it.
Yeah. So now, we hear of a lot of bands, a lot of rock and roll bands. They work on their first album for 12 to 15 years, and it's out, and it's a hit, and now you have 10 months to get the second album out there. Do you feel any pressure to get a second book out there?
I want to live a bit more and learn a bit more about life to be inspired first. So eventually, possibly, we'll see how it goes. So
great. So tell us where we can go to find out more about you, CB, and find out more about your book.
I have a website, CB Oresky, and it's spelled ORESKY.com. And also it's on Amazon and, Barnes & Nobles. It's everywhere. So.
And one of the things we like to do is we like to encourage our listeners to support their local bookshops and request the book. And I love encouraging people to go to their local public library and say, I was listening to Reading with Your Kids. I heard about this great book by C B Oresky. Can you bring it to the library? I think that would be
awesome. That would be totally great. And I know it's on Hoopla, too, for those people who've Hoopla. I know certain libraries carry it on their Hoopla site. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you, Jed. I appreciate it. This is great. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nausbaumer Knaflic and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Right now, let's take a listen back to our conversation with Danica McKeller. At the scene, the spread at the end where Moxie and her brother are playing together and cooperating to build that tower is really sweet. I mean, you just kind of feel the sweetness and that relationship coming off the page.
Thank you so much. Yeah, telling stories that warm the heart. That's what I've done my entire life on screen, and I love being able to bring that same sensibility to a little math and to kids through a book. Yeah,
you mentioned being on screen. A lot of people remember you from the Wonder Years. and also The West Wing and all sorts of Hallmark Channel films. And you've had an amazing career as a storyteller.
Thank you. Yeah, I counted. I've done 16 Hallmark Channel movies, and now I'm doing movies for a new network called Great American Family, or GAC Family. So it's the same guy who ran Hallmark Channel for 20 years, started this new network, and it's a lot of fun. I've got, I'm more of an executive producer role and multi-picture deal. It's really exciting. It's the same kind of movies, though, obviously, same guy who ran Hallmark Channel for so long. It's about warming the heart, and it's, people say, oh, these movies are such a great escape. And, I don't think they're just an escape. I really think of these movies as a way of demonstrating behaviors that we all could take on ourselves. Christmas traditions, like, if that's a great idea for something we could do with my family. Really modeling behavior that is going to make the world a better place. So it's not just escaping to a fantasy world, but it's about being reminded of the good stuff, the good side of human nature, because we see so much of the opposite on the news. Mm-hmm. So it's Great American Family. And I have one movie on that channel already called The Winter Palace, and that'll be re-airing a few times. And then my new Christmas movie will be on this channel as well.
Super, super. And one of the things I think you do with Double Puppy Trouble is you're giving families, obviously a fun story, but you're also giving families a tool they can use to help their kids have that friendly, positive relationship with numbers that you were mentioning earlier. Because I know myself, and so many kids are just intimidated by math and by numbers.
Exactly. Well, that's my whole mission with McKeller math books, starting at the very earliest of ages with Goodnight Numbers and bath time, math time, like the wanting to get to kids as early as possible. Now, the most crucial age for math and confidence in kids is middle school. And that's why I started writing my books. Like Math Doesn't Suck was my first book. You can see it here. Math Doesn't Suck, Kiss My Math. These books for middle school are the most crucial because that is the age where kids, especially girls, but all kids start to lose confidence in math. Their grades aren't dropping yet, but their confidence is dropping. And so that's the most crucial age. But after I wrote those books, people were saying, we want books for younger. I'm like, you know what? That's true. There's no age that's too young to create a happy association with math. Mm-hmm. And to start building that confidence and start building that sense of that numbers are your friends. In fact, that's actually a line out of Goodnight Numbers. That numbers are your friends. Mm-hmm. So that to me is such a wonderful opportunity. And as a storyteller, as an entertainer my whole life, I can't imagine a better use of entertainment than to help kids gain that internal confidence in themselves, and that's going to help them to embrace their smarts and to embrace math, become more financially savvy as they get older, because let's face it, kids who are afraid of numbers tend to be adults who avoid numbers, and those adults are the ones that the credit card companies and other financial institutions like to rip off. Einstein said something really cool about compound interest. He said it's the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it, earn it. Those who don't, pay it. Mm.
Well, that is absolutely true. And one of the things that we've explored here on the Reading With Your Kids podcast is just how important it is for us as parents to help our kids become financially literate.
Yes.
And the first way to do that is becoming comfortable and literate when it comes to numbers.
Yes. Absolutely. And so it's not just the financial literacy that is to me, the most important gift of math, although that's a really important one. But the other one is that exercising the problem-solving part of your brain, because it's the one section of your brain that solves problems, that solves puzzles, solves a math problem, that solves a dilemma when it comes at you. What are the actual facts? What my emotions are clouding my judgment. What do I actually know? How can I actually solve this? What are the steps I can take? And being able to think logically and having that problem-solving part of your brain really in good shape. Math does that for you. And kids have to be in math anyway. So why not use this opportunity to become a better problem solver and become somebody who that you're training yourself as a kid. You're training yourself to understand that you are the kind of person who's good at handling challenges and obstacles, because life is going to throw so many challenges and obstacles at all of us, our entire lives, things we never would have expected. And are we the kind of person who gets intimidated by difficult things, or can we build ourselves up from a young age to say, you know what, this looks really tough. It's a good thing I've got me on my side. Because I know how to handle stuff like this. It's a good thing I got me on my side, because I've tackled challenges before. I've faced seemingly insurmountable problems, math problems, before, and thought I couldn't do it, but then I stuck with it and I did it. That's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of internal fortitude that I want to give these kids, and that's why I write these books. It's not just for the math and the financial savviness, which is all very important, crucially important, but it's really because we, as a society, I feel like kids more and more are looking towards the outside for validation. They're looking to the social media and also this world we've lived in for a long time, decades and decades. You need these products to be happy. You need these products to be okay. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe you need to build your own sense of self and your own confidence that comes from feeling capable. Maybe that's the key to happiness. Maybe the key to happiness isn't other products or getting the most likes on social media. Maybe the key to happiness is feeling good about yourself and knowing that you are a solid human being who can handle whatever life throws at you. So that, to me, is the most important gift of mathematics, and getting kids comfortable with it and embracing their smarts and embracing these challenges that math class will inevitably bring.
Yeah. I love the passion that you have, because not only can I see it, but I can hear it in your voice. This is something that you are really committed to, and I love that. And as you're talking, we've for 5 years have been talking and sharing with parents how important it is to read with your kids and all the benefits that they get from reading together. Well, I think, and we've touched on it a little bit here in the podcast, doing math together or mathing together. I don't know how you do that, but math with your kids.
Solving together, right?
Yeah,
yep.
Solving together, sitting down and helping your kids understand, yes, you have this mountain of a problem, but you don't have to start at the top. You can take a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and just work your way up that mountain. That's
true. Now, what I've had a lot of parents tell me is, what do I do? The math looks different now. I don't know how to help my kids. Like, even some parents say I could never do math. Others say I was okay at math, but now I really don't get it. Well, regardless, I do recommend parents looking at my books first before you give it to your kids, if you're in that boat, if you are feeling like you're not, confident to help your kids. And in particular, in terms of the math looking different, I've got 2 books which are not behind me. I have so many books that they're not even all behind me right now. One's called Do Not Open This Math Book. It's for 1st and 2nd graders. The other one is The Times Machine for 3rd and 4th graders. And again, these are all at McKellarMath.com. But the elementary school is where the math looks the most different from how it looked 10, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in both of those books, I have a new math translation guide for grown-ups in the back, specifically designed for the grown-ups, the parents who are like, what is all this? What is regrouping? I thought it was called borrowing, whatever it is. There are a lot of changes, or, multiplication is taught very differently and division is taught very differently. They've managed to make it really complicated. But what I do in the books too is I'll say, okay, here's how we learned it. Here's what they're doing. Here's how it's really the same thing. It's just kind of dressed up differently. Mm-hmm. And so I take great pride in helping parents to get what's actually going on and to know, no, you're not stupid and it's not as different as you think. Here's what's going on. I can walk you through this, and then you can walk your kids through it and have a little more confidence instead of going out, throwing your hands up and saying, I have no idea. Good luck, kid. Mm-hmm. That's not what we want.
Yeah. Yes, I do educational magic shows around the country, and there is one trick that I did for years, and it involved a math problem and a prediction and lining up the numbers in columns and everything, and I had to throw it away because the kids were like not understanding what I was doing.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. One of the things I noticed on McKellarMath.com is your slogan, the fun way to do the right thing for your child's math education. Can you kind of expand a little bit more on that concept?
Yes, absolutely. So the idea is that the right thing is to help your kids, to support your kids in math. It's really important for all the reasons we've just talked about, for that confidence, for the financial savviness. But it can be daunting. So with my background in entertainment, I've made entertaining ways to help your kids in math and entertaining ways for kids to help themselves in math. It's got to be fun. I just figure why shouldn't math be like kindergarten? And I love math. I have a degree in mathematics from UCLA. I've studied everything. Multivariable calculus was just the beginning. I've studied it all. Well, not all. I shouldn't say it all. See, that's my math literal self. There's tons of math that I haven't studied because there's so much math out there that not even I don't think one person could learn all the math that is out there in one lifetime. Anyway, there's a fun way to do it. And I have this very unique combination of life experience of being an entertainer my whole life and truly loving math, the nitty gritty of it, loving what it does for your brain and knowing how to take some typically very dry topics and make them very fun. In Kiss My Math, I talk about integers. That's positive and negative whole numbers. And you're like, wow, that is the most boring thing. I can't even think of anything more boring, even than the word integer. And I talk about, this sounds like a medical instrument. Like, quick, we need to operate. Hand me the integer. Like, this is awful. So we can't talk about integers. It's not going to work. So instead we talk about mintegers. And so the idea of having mints that taste good, and the bigger the number, the better they taste. And then the negative numbers, the negative integers or the negative mintegers are the ones that just taste awful, like those Harry Potter jelly beans with flavors like vomit, earwax, like it's awful. So, but the idea of mintegers is you can combine a really yummy minteger with a terribly tasting minteger and they cancel each other out. And if they cancel each other out completely, you get to 0, which is also known as the linteger that has no taste at all, like lint. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just making it, kind of bring it to life like that. And, so that's, integers, that's just one tiny example. Even, lower grades, like for the Times Machine, the book about multiplication and division. One of the things that I was really excited about doing, because I hadn't seen it done well anywhere, that is making a fun way for kids to learn their multiplication tables, their multiplication facts. Because it's one of the more boring things to do, just memorizing all these, okay, 4 times 5 is 20. You're like memorizing all these combinations and it's mind numbing. Well, I took not the 2s or the 10s, but the ones that are more challenging. And each one has a little story, a little poem with a picture and to make it come to life so that you remember it better. One of my favorite ones to talk about is 6 times 7 is 42. And, so Mr. Mouse is a character in both Do Not Open This Math Book and The Times Machine. Mr. Mouse is not a big fan of math, but he loves cheese. And so I said, okay, Mr. Mouse ate a 6-sided block of cheese, right? A cube of cheese every day for a full week. So that's 7 days. So that's your 6 times 7. Well, by the end of that week, Mr. Mouse was pretty full and farty too. So no, I am not above using fart jokes to teach math if that is required. Because let's face it, no kid is going to forget that 6 times 7 is 42 after that story. Mm-hmm. So this is what I mean. It's how do you create characters and stories and bring these numbers to life and make them fun, give them personalities, and that's what makes it more memorable. And then you do feel more confident because, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to forget that one, or it's just about bringing it to life. Yeah. Storytelling is an incredible tool and superpower that I think can be used for good, and that's what I'm trying to do.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We also hope it inspires you to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We love the iHeartRadio app. We love Spotify, Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Good Pods. We love all the apps that carry our show. We also love the AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And if you love the show, please be sure to leave a review wherever you find the show. Leave a review. Help our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. And leaving a 5-star review is one way you can help us. We want to connect with you on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and at JedleyMagic on X. We'd also love for you to visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube. You can also find our Drawing with Your Kids episodes and also our STEM is Family Fun videos. We'd also love for you to check out our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Cole Nausbaumer Knaflic. Please be sure to check out Daphne Draws Data. I want to thank C B Oresky and all the great folks down at Authorpalooza in Norwalk, Connecticut. And we want to thank Danica McKeller. I want to thank my team. They're amazing. Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannibal Sanj, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.